Good evening and welcome. Thank you all for coming here today. My name is Amal Bashara, and I teach anthropology at Tufts University. And thank you all for being here. And it's really an honor to be a part of this event this evening. First of all, I want to thank our amazing organizers. We are lucky, as I think probably many of you know, to have such a wealth of organizations and organizers that can contribute to important events like this one. Thanks to Peace and Justice Social Concerns of the Friends Meeting at Cambridge. A special thanks. to the Alliance for Water Justice in Palestine, the Boston Coalition for Palestinian Rights, the Gaza Mental Health Foundation, Jewish Voice for Peace Boston, Tree of Life Educational Fund, Unitarian Universalists for Justice in the Middle East, Massachusetts, and United for Justice with Peace. Again, thanks to all of you. I think this is a really important event for so many different reasons, because it's important for us to hear from each of these speakers on each of these topics individually, but I think it's especially important for us to hear from them together on this occasion. In some ways, thinking about Hebron and about Gaza, we're looking at two edges of Israel's brutal military occupation, two edges of its colonization. So we can look at really different techniques that Israel has been involved with in terms of putting Palestinian lives in danger, right? In Gaza, obviously, so much killing goes on from afar, from missiles sent from the air, no contact at all, right? And we know that thousands of people are dying by these methods, are being killed by these methods because of Israeli aggression in the last 3 wars over the last years. And in Hebron, in some sense to the contrary, we see killing at a terrifyingly close scale from Israeli soldiers and Israeli settlers. We see Palestinians being faced with the prospect of spending their whole lives living right next to Israeli settlers who deny their existence and their right to live every day in as many ways as possible, including through racist graffiti, hateful graffiti, through throwing trash on people's residences, through basically every way that they have of expressing their hatred of Palestinians and their resistance, or rather their rejection of Palestinians' right to life. So I think it's really important for us to look at the similarities and differences. This is one system of settler colonialism that actually, of course, doesn't only include Gaza and the West Bank, but also includes Israel itself, and that affects Palestinians everywhere, not just in historic Palestine, but Palestinian refugees and others in the diaspora in different ways. So it's important for us to take opportunities where we can see different locations and sort of refract them against each other and look at what it means that in one place we see this terrifying killing from afar, from the air, and in another place we see this terrifying killing up front, face to face, so close, as we've seen in the last few weeks and months in Hebron in particular. And I think, so listening also to the specificities of these places, to learn about how Palestinians are struggling to live their everyday lives in these places is something that is of great importance to me as a person who cares about people's lives. And I know that that's really why so many of us are here. So I think that, thinking about the specificity of people's struggles is really, really, really important. And kind of to go one step further, it's really a delight, on the other hand, to be able to see two very different approaches to a struggle for justice in Israel-Palestine. Right? Two different approaches to grassroots activism. Issa Amro's work every day on the ground in Palestine and also abroad, obviously here, but fundamentally based in Hebron and Palestine, and Nancy Murray's decades of involvement in solidarity activism in this area, and also, of course, in the United States, and also spending a lot of time in Palestine, but obviously much more based here. So I think it's an occasion to celebrate these different forms of activism, and seeing them together is a really powerful thing for me. So I think that I am going to introduce both speakers, and then Nancy will go first. So Nancy Murray has been an activist for peace with justice in the Middle East since 1988, when she paid her first visit to the West Bank and Gaza Strip. She subsequently founded the Middle East Justice Network and the Gaza Mental Health Foundation. She's written a book and many articles on Israel-Palestine, and she serves on the editorial committee of the British journal Race and Class. She holds a PhD in history from Oxford University. She's taught at universities and worked for human rights in the United Kingdom and Kenya, as well as the United States. For 25 years, she also served as the Director of Education at the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union of Massachusetts. And as I think all of us know, she's a tremendous gift and asset to our community here in so many different ways. Issa Amro is an internationally renowned Palestinian human rights defender who has led the nonviolent popular struggle against the suffocation and siege of the old part of the Palestinian city of Hebron by Israeli soldiers and settlers. And I think it's an interesting opportunity, again, for us to think about, in some senses, these neighborhoods in Hebron are under siege in the same way that Gaza, in a different way than Gaza is under siege, but we can think about siege working in those two places differently together. In the process of this struggle, he has had his bones broken, been arrested dozens of times, and his life is constantly threatened. He's a model of everyday courage and perseverance. He's also the founder of Youth Against Settlements, a Hebron-based organization that documents human rights abuses and encourages local families to resist nonviolently, despite the severe freedom of movement restrictions and ongoing attacks by settlers and soldiers. And he comes to us from a speaking tour in the United States, which included being in New York to be honored by the Institute for Middle East Understanding. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Amal. Thank you all for being here and for that very warm welcome. Now, on April 18th, I paid my 13th visit to the Gaza Strip. The process of getting into Gaza last month bore little resemblance to my first trip early in 1988, shortly after the launch of the vibrant uprising of the entire civil population known as the Intifada. Since then, it's now called the First Intifada. That was launched in Gaza's Jabalia refugee camp. Then it was possible to take a spur-of-the-moment decision to drive from East Jerusalem to Gaza City. Now, there was a several-month application process for an Israeli entry permit in order to participate in a mental health and human rights conference organized by the Gaza Community Mental Health Program. At pretty much the last moment, the dozen or so internationals planning to attend the conference were informed that permits for our entry had been obtained by a German NGO that was co-sponsoring the conference. I should say on several occasions I have had permits turned down. At the Erez crossing, it took a few hours to pass through the 3 separate stations where documents and luggage were scrutinized. First, in a huge, dehumanizing Israeli transit terminal where waiting can be interminable, especially for Palestinians. Then, about a kilometer down a very ominous-looking concrete funnel, we went to a more modest station manned by the Palestinian Authority, and finally, a short taxi ride away in the now permanent-looking Gaza border control terminal. We had our papers scrutinized by Hamas officials, and I must say this entry point bore no resemblance to the battered storage container in which I had been processed by Hamas officials during a 2009 visit. Only then can one properly say one is inside the spit of land just 26 miles long and a handful of miles wide that is wedged between the Mediterranean Sea, Israel, and Egypt. Down here, that is the Gaza Strip. I'm sure you all know where it is. The Gaza Strip has had a rich history from at least the 18th century BC. Think of that. Formerly a district in mandatory Palestine, the Gaza Strip, as it became known after the creation of the State of Israel, is now home to 1.8 million people, nearly half of them children under 15 years of age. 1.2 million are refugees, a large proportion of whom are caged just miles from their former homes. Many can look over to where they used to live, inside what is now Israel. Since we are here at the Friends Meeting House, I should mention that it was the American Friends Service Committee that, before the formation of UNRWA, the UN Relief and Works Agency, first looked after the 200,000 refugees who had fled or were pushed out of what became Israel into what they hoped would be the protection of the Egyptian army, causing the population of the area to triple in just 1 year. Now all the people in the Gaza Strip live in what is essentially an open-air prison under the incessant gaze of Israeli drones, surveillance balloons, the remote killing spot and shoot system housed in watchtowers built into prison walls, and sentry guns that fire automatically from pillboxes when alerted by sensors. Frequent targets of these weapons are farmers who venture onto what used to be their rich agricultural land, but is now deemed by Israel to be part of an elastic, 1-mile-wide no-go zone that consumes nearly a fifth of the Gaza Strip. Tanks and naval ships patrol the perimeters, and F-16s and Apache helicopters can unload their lethal cargo at any time, as they did last week in southern Gaza. For a decade, the Gaza Strip has been under near total lockdown, as an Israeli siege on the territory has blocked movement in and out of people and goods. And I should say that thousands, it's up to 30,000 Gazans, need medical treatment outside the Gaza Strip. Many have been having cancer treatment and have been blocked from getting it. Many thousands of students are kept from accessing their universities abroad or in the West Bank. So these are the people the closure is immediately affecting. Tonight, I want to do three things. First, briefly summarize the evolution of the siege conditions and the accumulated trauma that Gaza has endured since the First Intifada. Second, give you some impressions from my April visit. And finally, say something about how we here in the United States can channel the outrage I hope you will be feeling by the time I conclude my remarks. So first, for some recent history. When I first visited the Gaza Strip in 1988, hospital beds were full of young men and children who had endured the force, might, and beatings, that was the term used, that then Israeli Defense Minister Yitzhak Rabin had ordered to put down an unarmed uprising of the entire population. Many had been shot at close range, and all night long I would hear screams and gunshots and the wailing of ambulances. 1,200 Palestinians were killed during the first uprising, even though their only weapons were stones. The Gaza economy suffered greatly during the First Intifada and as a result of the First Gulf War. By 1992, it was so bad that when the UN advertised 8 jobs for garbage collectors, it got 11,655 applications. But it was under the so-called Oslo peace process of the mid and late 1990s that Gaza's economy was throttled, as Sarah Roy, a local one, I'm sure many of you know her. She lives in Boston, and she has written the best books about the de-development of the Gaza Strip. Gazans were cut off from jobs in Israel and increasingly from the West Bank, where Oslo ushered in the doubling of the number of Israeli settlers. After a settler from Brooklyn, Baruch Goldstein, murdered 29 Palestinians at prayer in Hebron's Ibrahimi Mosque. You'll hear more about that in a minute. Hamas carried out its first suicide bombing. The year was 1994. Hamas was put on the US government's list of terrorist organizations the following year. And this is the basis for the US no-contact rule, which operates today. Basically, there can be no contact at all with anybody in the Gaza government because they are presumably in some way connected to Hamas, or in case they are connected to Hamas. Now, as you may recall, the failure of the Oslo process and the provocative September 2000 appearance by then Likud head Ariel Sharon, surrounded by 1,000 Israeli police when he approached the Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is what sparked a second Palestinian uprising in which armed groups and suicide bombers eventually participated, not in the beginning, but eventually. And from 2000 to 2008, Israel repeatedly used tanks, F-16s, and helicopter gunships against a defenseless civilian population. Some 3,000 people were killed in the Gaza Strip alone during these years. This is the per capita equivalent of 600,000 American dead. Among them were approximately 700 children. Now, I would like to tell you about one event I personally witnessed, one incident. I witnessed at least its aftermath. In July 2002, after the Israeli military had reinvaded the West Bank and Gaza Strip, destroying thousands of Palestinian homes, extinguishing hundreds of lives, the Palestinian Authority and Hamas reached an understanding that suicide bombings within Israel had to stop. Just 90 minutes before an announcement to that effect was to be made on July 22nd, 2002. The Israeli Air Force dropped a 1-ton bomb on an apartment building in a densely crowded neighborhood of Gaza City, reportedly in an effort to kill a Hamas leader. 16 Palestinian civilians, including 11 children, perished. And when I went to the site of the bombing the following day, I found people in shock and children's shoes and school supplies scattered through the rubble. The suicide bombings continued. Israel's withdrawal of its settlers from the Gaza Strip in 2005 completed the transformation of the Strip into what the Israeli human rights group B'Tselem referred to as the largest prison on earth. Totally encircled by walls, fences, and towers, Israel continued to control its air, sea, and land, and who goes in and out. And once settlers were gone, Palestinians were repeatedly subjected to eardrum-shattering sonic booms and frequent tank fire and missile strikes. The IDF could attack the Gaza Strip with increasing impunity, as it did in various operations, one in June 2006, which destroyed the only power plant in the Gaza Strip, and then again it attacked in November 2006. In the words of the Israeli academic Avi Shleim, quote, "The figures speak for themselves. In the 3 years after the withdrawal from Gaza, 11 Israelis were killed by rocket fire. On the other hand, in 2005 to 7 alone, the IDF killed 1,290 Palestinians in Gaza, including 222 children," end quote. The closure was tightened after Hamas won the January 2006 legislative election that former US President Jimmy Carter called democratic and fair. It was transformed into a chokehold in June 2007 after a clash with a CIA-backed Fatah militia led to a total Hamas takeover of the territory. And under the harsh economic siege then initiated by Israel, only 12 basic items were permitted to enter the Gaza Strip, and just enough of them to keep people alive. Electricity and food were severely rationed. Cement, soap, many medical supplies, potable water, and raw materials were kept out altogether as Israel made Hamas-ruled Gaza a laboratory for trying out new weapon systems and finding the breaking point of human beings. On March 6, 2008, a coalition of human rights groups issued a devastating report entitled "The Gaza Strip, a Humanitarian Implosion." It concludes, quote, "This humanitarian crisis is a direct result of ongoing collective punishment of ordinary men, women, and children, and is illegal under international law. Peace will not be achieved by locking 1.3 million people into a prison of spiraling poverty and misery. End quote. Still, the siege went on, preparing Gazans for the shock and awe of Israel's military might over the next 6 years. In 6 years, there were 3 major military attacks. I'm sure you remember Operation Cast Lead, Operation Pillar of Defense, and then in the summer of 2014, the 51-day onslaught known as Operation Protective Edge. These offensives killed thousands of people, more than 800 of them children, and wreaked massive destruction on homes, schools, hospitals, municipal buildings, the industrial area, agricultural lands, and the vital infrastructure for water, sewage, and electricity. And after each aggression, the Israeli-imposed closure remained in place, barring the import of essential building materials and forcing people to live in the rubble of their homes. Such have been the methods used by Israel in its 7 decades-long project of attempting to destroy resistance to dispossession. It is in the Gaza Strip that Palestinian resistance has, over the years, been at its most unrelenting and determined, and so has Israel's determination to stamp it out. Now, bear this background in mind as I turn now to impressions from my recent trip. Remember that half of the Gaza Strip's population are children, and that these children have endured a 10-year-long siege and 5 major military attacks during that decade. My first meeting on entry was with an old friend, a Gazan doctor, who informed me that, quote, Gaza is terminally ill, end quote. And much of what I saw and heard over the next 4 days seemed to lend weight to that assertion. Nearly 2 years after the end of the 2014 attacks, which left much of the Gaza Strip in ruins, one bombed-out tower block still dangerously tilts over a Gaza City road, but explosives and ordnance have largely been cleared away, along with the rubble of thousands of hospitals, schools, and mosques. By the way, 73 mosques were totally destroyed and another 200 or so damaged. And what you see in places where the damaged buildings and the destroyed buildings were are now large sandy patches of earth and tangled piles of metal, the remains of vehicles and rebar. Although some new mosques and a new hospital have been built with funds from Qatar and Kuwait, what you do not see much of is reconstruction in neighborhoods blasted by war. Less than half of the $5.4 billion in reconstruction funds pledged in a 2014 conference for rebuilding Gaza, mostly by Gulf countries, less than half of that amount has been delivered. But a bigger problem than the funding shortage, a bigger problem than the funding shortage is the UN-brokered Gaza Reconstruction Mechanism, or GRM, which was agreed to by the Palestinian Authority and Israel. It is designed to keep any materials that may have a dual use, say for a house and possibly a tunnel, out of the hands of the Hamas government. GRM gives Israel a case-by-case approval power over all applications for construction material. It requires a cumbersome bureaucratic process for pre-approval and then constant supervision by cameras and special storage facilities and monitoring by drones of how materials are used. Twice last month, Israel barred the import of cement, alleging it was being transferred to people associated with Hamas and could be used to build tunnels. When I encountered some of the areas that had been hardest hit in 2014, I found families living in partially destroyed buildings without 4 walls, which were death traps for children, and which lacked water, electricity, and any form of sanitation. Other houses had been patched up. According to UN figures, 3,000 of the 18,000 homes that were entirely destroyed or severely damaged are now habitable. That's 3,000. But nearly 100,000 of the 500,000 Gazans who were forced to flee during the war are still displaced from what had been their homes. They are renting, some have moved in with relatives, or are living in storage facilities or other makeshift structures. Not only has the pace of reconstruction been dismally slow, but it has provided few jobs for residents struggling with unemployment rate of nearly 50%. Deepening poverty, combined with total lack of freedom of movement, has hit young people especially hard. Among them, tens of thousands of university graduates without any prospects for employment. I was told these conditions have led to an upsurge in anger and despair and rise in suicide rates to a level never before seen in the Gaza Strip. But what makes the Gaza Strip terminally ill, as my doctor friend put it, isn't to do with reconstruction. It's to do with the breakdown of the vital infrastructure that sustains life, namely water, electricity, sewage. In 2012, this infrastructure had already been destroyed by wars. And in 2012, a UN report warned that water and electricity crisis in the Gaza Strip could render it unlivable, that was their word, by 2020. But how livable is it today? When electricity is only available for 8 hours a day and then sporadically, when 95% of the water supply is contaminated by seawater and sewage, when 80 million liters of raw sewage is dumped into the Mediterranean Sea every day, and when giant lakes of sewage accumulate and sometimes overflow their banks. I visited one of these sewage basins in the north of the Gaza Strip, and heard from a family in nearby al-Nasr about how they took refuge on the roof of their house when the sewage turned to a flood that killed 5 people and many animals. I find it simply unconscionable that Israel and the United States are prepared to let 1.8 million people live in these conditions and die in these conditions, because infant mortality is rising, as is maternal mortality. And why are they doing this? They're doing this because importing the vital materials to fix the infrastructure of the Gaza Strip would require dealing with Hamas officials. This brings me to another factor contributing to the despair felt by Palestinians I talked to in both the Gaza Strip and West Bank, namely the failure of attempts to overcome the calamitous Fatah-Hamas rift. The formation of a functioning unity government with which the United States could deal could provide a lifeline for Gaza and could bring the West Bank and Gaza Strip closer together. But it has not happened. And some speculate that the reasons have less to do with the bad blood between Palestinian factions than with external pressures exerted not just by the US and Israel, but by other players seeking influence in a newly volatile region. In current circumstances of strangling siege and regional upheaval, many fear that Palestinians themselves do not have the agency to move beyond the fragments in order to move forward with the national cause. So that really did strike a lot of people as a cause for great alarm. But alongside this very bleak picture is another reality that I need to convey in the time remaining to me, because it would do great injustice to the spirit of the Gaza Strip to leave you with the impression that they are sunk in depression and at the end of their collective tether. On several occasions during this brief visit, I again experienced the personal warmth, generosity, and exuberance that made the Gaza Strip such an enticing place when I first visited it during the heady days of the First Intifada and during many subsequent trips. An astonishing fortitude was evident during the Gaza Community Mental Health Program's 2-day conference, which was attended by 800 people from around the Gaza Strip. The imperative of addressing the collective injustice inflicted on the Palestinian people has made the GCMHP, that's the Gaza Community Mental Health Program, more than a mental health service provider as typically understood in the West. Instead, it is engaged in human justice work, recognizing that human rights, security, and the quality of life are fundamental to mental health, and that essential mental health needs of Palestinians cannot be fully met without a social, economic, and political transformation. The director of the GCMHP is Dr. Yasser Abu Jameh, who lost 28 members of his extended family in a single missile strike in 2014. He declared in his keynote speech that, quote, planting hope is our main duty, end quote. And I saw the work of instilling hope in the energy with which the GCMHP and other organizations I visited labored to heal the spirit of traumatized children and to bring hope to young people who felt they had no future and to women at the receiving end of a vicious spiral in domestic violence. I saw it in the determination of students, men and women working together to transcend their confinement by making creative use of the internet and becoming vigorous advocates for an end to human rights abuses, not just in the Gaza Strip, but across the region. And I recommend you have a look at the Euro-Mediterranean Human Rights Monitor, which they are part of. Had I been there longer, I am sure I would have discovered beacons of hope all around the Gaza Strip. For in the context of Gaza, the word resilience has been taken to a whole new level. So what steps can we in this room take to nourish hope among a people who have for far too long experienced the full weight of the more than $100 billion in just military aid that successive US governments have given Israel? Now, I'm going to just mention 3 concrete things, and I know that we will hear of more ideas from Issa. First, you can support the indispensable mental health work being undertaken in the Gaza Strip by donating to the Gaza Mental Health Foundation, which I co-founded in 2001. Do take one of the brochures in the front of the room to find out more about how the funds we collect are used. And second, you can sign up to get more information about the Alliance for Water Justice in Palestine, formerly the Boston Alliance for Water Justice. This is a group that is raising consciousness about the many ways Israel is using water as a weapon against the Palestinian people, including in the Gaza Strip. I should say we got started to campaign against the water partnership that Massachusetts had formed with Israel. We succeeded in getting that partnership put on hold, and we are now making sure that it is not revived. Yay. And finally, you can insist that Israel's 10-year-old siege of Gaza and its nearly 50-year-old occupation are brought to an end. You can do this, making sure this language is part of any campaign you are involved in, whether BDS or other campaign. You can bring the message to your friends, your neighbors, your church and community groups, your local newspaper, and most crucially, your elected officials. Batter them with that message. They must hear it. And the time to do this has never been more ripe than now, when there are growing signs within the US of a shift in public attitudes towards Palestine, especially among young people. Palestinians I talked to last month are aware of the shift, and it gives them hope. Bernie Sanders, by the way, has a sizable fan club in the Gaza Strip for one single reason. He recognizes that Palestinians are people too, and actually dared say as much in his debate with Hillary Clinton. Isn't it shameful that no other politician has said this? So changing US policy is obviously a very tall order, but I want to close with words attributed to Mahatma Gandhi. Quote, "Strength does not come from physical capacity," he said. "It comes from an indomitable will," end quote. And I saw in the Gaza Strip an indomitable will that has helped sustain its people through so many difficult years, if we develop the indomitable will to work for freedom, equality, and justice in Palestine and Israel, who knows what we will achieve? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you very much for coming tonight. It's my pleasure to be here tonight to see that the room is full of Palestinian supporters. I can say justice supporters, freedom supporters, and equality supporters, not only in Palestine, but all over the world, and in the United States too. So in Palestine, we are seeking justice, freedom, and equality. That's all what we are asking for. I'm not here to convince you about what is happening that is wrong, or to take your sympathy, or to make you hate someone, or to make you go back home angry and sad. I am here to tell you that as Palestinians, we are fighting, resisting the occupation till we get our freedom. But we need your support. We need you to be with us, and we need you to be updated about the situation in Palestine. All my presentation is about what we can do together to make a real change. Nancy ended her presentation with quoting Gandhi. I can say that I learned a lot from Gandhi, but much more from the civil rights movement and from Martin Luther King here in the United States. Wherever I go, I learn more, I'm inspired more, but I think we need to do more to continue the message of freedom and equality and justice. I will start with your ambassador to Israel. What he said in last January about the situation in Palestine. He said, Israel applies two standards of law, apartheid. That is the American ambassador to Israel, not Issa Amro, not Nancy, not any one of you. He is the official representative of the United States of America to Israel. You know what it means? It means that the situation on the ground is much, much worse than what he is talking about. And one of the examples of this kind of apartheid is me. I am here today, but in my city, I'm not equal with the Israeli settlers who are my neighbors. How I am not equal? Mistreatment? No. Physical attacks? Not only that. By law, I am under the Israeli military law. By law. And the settlers who attack me day and night are under the Israeli civilian law. You know what it means that it's two different legal systems? It's apartheid. Not only that, we have special roads for the Palestinians and special roads for the Israeli settlers. And unfortunately, that the small tracks are for the Palestinians and the big roads are for the Israeli settlers. And we are talking about the middle of West Bank, the middle of the 1967 borders. We are not talking about Jerusalem, we are not talking about other places. So it's very important to address that the apartheid exists. That is the apartheid that we are suffering from in Hebron, which your ambassador to Israel talked about, finally talked about. But unfortunately, till now, your tax money is occupying me, is helping the settlers to torture us more and more. In spite that they reached that point to say that it's apartheid, it's double standards, but the money, the political support, the blind support is till now continuous. Merkel is the other best friend in Europe to Israel. And they are always supportive. They are always blindly backing up Israeli human rights violations. Merkel, I understand why President Abbas continually seeks out the Security Council. You know what it means? She believed now, after 22 years of pressuring and, forcing us as Palestinians to sit on the negotiation table, that it's useless. That is the conclusion of her speech. She understands now why our president is always saying, I want to go to the council. I want to go to the Security Council. Because it's no way to get any kind of achievement on the ground from the Israeli government. And I have an Israeli friend told me, I hope that you organize something for him here. He's an amazing guy. He says, Israel is too strong to make peace. They don't need it. He studies now in Boston even, or here. Germany wary of the unconditional support for Israel. It's these days. I'm talking about last week news in Germany. The other new thing, which the Israeli deputy chief of the IDF, an official, wrote his speech, discussed it with his advisors during the Holocaust memorial. And he gave a speech. He said, I see signs of 1930s Germany now. I will show you what he means. He was attacked from the right wing, from the government, but he said that because of what he sees on the ground. That is the slide, shows us the reality in Hebron. The extrajudicial execution of a 18 years old Hadil Hashlamoun. He's a soldier. She's Hadil Hashlamoun. She was executed as kind of extrajudicial execution by an Israeli soldier when she was behind a metal barrier. And the first statement from the Israeli government was, she tried to stab an Israeli soldier. He shot her in the leg, but she's Superman. She continued, after she got a few bullets, she continued to attack that innocent, well-trained armed soldier. He had to shoot her, and she passed away, unfortunately. We tried to save her, but she passed away. Hadil, the photo we have for Hadil, you can Google Hadil al-Hashlamoun, and you will see sequence of photos. She entered the checkpoint, soldiers shouting, yelling at her in Hebrew. She doesn't speak Hebrew. She was afraid, terrified. She started going back, and she raised her hand. She got 15 bullets. Died, but before she passes away, they kept her 45 minutes without any medical treatment. That is the signs of 1930s Germany. I will tell you something important. As Palestinians, we are stereotyped here and all over. As you say fried chicken, you always remember Kentucky. With the Palestinians, wherever you see a Palestinian, a terrorist, that is the stereotype. All over the world, or Muslims, or Arabs, we are all terrorists, and we love to die. We like to die. We like to lose our children. We like to live under siege in Gaza. They are doing, what are we asking them to do? I want to show you how, as Palestinians, we are using the popular resistance which the civil rights movement used here in the USA. But we don't have that support to cover our nonviolence and popular resistance. And not only that, we don't have any power to protect our nonviolence resistance. Nobody is protecting us. And one of the reasons I am here today to get protection for the Palestinian human rights defenders and the human rights leaders. That's what I'm trying to gain from my visits to here and everywhere. So this is one of the protests in the last 6 months where peaceful protesters chanting for peace, chanting for freedom, chanting for equality, chanting for justice. That's what we seek as Palestinians. That's what we want as Palestinians. Thousands of university students, normal elders, kids, women, they were in this protest. They reached the checkpoint without throwing one stone toward the Israeli soldiers. Even you hear in Arabic someone telling other kid, don't throw stones, don't throw stones. This is the protest. You see, in front of the soldiers, thousands of Palestinians. Go on. We don't have, we're not sure. Okay. So we have non-violence protest, but they face us with live ammunition, bullets in the legs. I have many friends got bullets in the legs, and it was their last day in our popular struggle. And you can say that hundreds of Palestinians, they got live bullets in the legs. At least 70 to 75 Palestinians were shot during this kind of protests, dead. They were killed. But nobody talk about them. That is Hebron. How they deal with the Palestinian children. How they treat the Palestinian children. You'll see this video clip.
Why are you taking it?
This is wrong. This is so wrong. You shouldn't be doing this.
You see how Israeli soldiers, well-trained, well-equipped Israeli soldiers are arresting 10-year-old Palestinians. Unfortunately, hundreds of Palestinians now are in the Israeli prisons, are children. Even many of them are in administrative detention. You know what is the administrative detention? You are in jail, you don't know why. No trials, that's it. Administrative detention, you get it, you don't argue about it. You have no possibility to know why you are in jail. And it's happening a lot these days. Israeli settlers, they attack Palestinians from time to time. And not only they attack Palestinians, they intimidate them. They scare them. But why? Are they violent people? Are they bad behavior people, the settlers? No. They are very peaceful with their families, very peaceful in their communities, but very violent with the Palestinians. Why? First, Nancy mentioned accountability and impunity. They are not accountable about attacking second, third class Arab. It's okay, you can do it. Nobody cares. This is in one hand. In the other hand, it's about chasing the Palestinians from their homes, making their life harder and harder in order to make them live by their own. So the Nakba Memorial, which is coming in a few days, is continuous. Nakba didn't end in Palestine. It's going on. So you see the settlers, how they just...
Sorry, you've got it there now.
Yes, I'm there. You see them arresting Palestinian kids, and you see settlers on Palestinian houses with their M16s, you know, on the roof. It's okay. The settlers can go. They can do whatever they want. They can point the guns at the kids. They can scare the kids. They can, you know, even break into the Palestinian homes. And then the soldiers come and tell them, okay, please leave. And they leave without any kind of accountability. It's about impunity and accountability. They are not accountable. Why? Because I am as Issa under the Israeli military law, guilty by law, and they are under the Israeli civilian law. They are allowed to have guns, they are allowed to have knives, they are allowed to use anything against us. Me, I'm not allowed even to defend myself. You see, they are on a roof, on a Palestinian roof. They filmed a kid who filmed soldiers and settlers shooting a Palestinian down into the street. He's with M16, and both are American origin from Brooklyn. So that is their, you know, daily behavior almost in Hebron. They just intimidate us, they humiliate us, and they don't see us as equal human beings. This video shows the extrajudicial execution, and all of you last month saw an Israeli soldier shot a Palestinian injured, silent person on the ground. The story was not only that. That Palestinian who was shot, he tried to escape to one corner. He didn't find a place to escape. He came back to escape from another corner. Imagine what happened there exactly. Then he stood in the middle of the street, raised his hand. He got 3 bullets, fall down. That is, you didn't see it in the video, but that is the testimony of a Palestinian family who saw what happened, and I believe them. Then that soldier heard that the Israeli paramedic who came with the ambulance, who is his word to save lives, said, that dog is alive. That soldier got an order from his commander to shoot him to confirm the killing. I saw it many times. I was talking about it since 6 months. We saw many videos of that, but we saw a stronger image in that video. But this video is more even, it's harder. A Palestinian injured, asking for help, didn't get any medical treatment. In the contrary, they are interrogated him on the spot, as if they can get something from someone got 5 bullets. Look to this video. A Palestinian on the ground. He's not dead yet. Can you correct the sound? You see? If you see an animal like that, you don't feel well. They are asking about his... That is a small video which is showing you that it was not that case only. Many other cases. Amnesty International described it as extrajudicial execution. Human Rights Watch described it as extrajudicial execution. The State Department here in the US described it as extrajudicial execution. On the other hand, we don't see anything making a change. We don't see any real pressure on them. This video shows you what your ambassador talked about. He talked about double standards. 2 Israeli settlers attacking a Palestinian in Hebron. This is in Tal Rumeida. This kind of fights, it's normal. It happens even in Boston, that you see teenagers fighting each other. What is abnormal is that the one who was attacked is arrested. Look, 2 Palestinians and one of them who was attacked was arrested. The 2 settlers, they can't arrest them according to the civilian law. You see, I tell you my personal experience. I was arrested at least 5 times after I was attacked by Israeli settlers. One of them, his name is Baruch Marzel, and he was the assistant of Meir Kahana. You are exporting a lot of terrorists to us, and they like the environment there. No, okay, we can do whatever we like. Our fundamental extremism, we can implement it on the Palestinians, and we are heroes there. He's a hero. He attacked me in my yards, stressed past, attacked me, punched me in the face, kicked me. I called the soldier to come to protect me. The soldier came. I just pushed him outside bushing. It's very obvious. Outside my yards. I was arrested. They accused me of attacking the holy Baruch Marzel on Shabbat. I told them, bring him. They said, it's Shabbat, we bring him Sunday. Today we can't. It was Friday evening. We can't arrest them on Shabbat. I was released because of the video. We filmed him sitting up the story with the soldier whom I called, who said, yes, I saw Issa attacking Baruch Marzel. But we were lucky that we used the most trustful witness and the best non-violence tool, the video camera, to protect ourselves. And many times it happened with me, but at least 5 times I was arrested after I was attacked. Sometimes from soldiers and sometimes from Israeli settlers. So these days we are commemorating the Nakba, which is till now going on. Green, yellow, a little bit of green. We said we want peace. So let's have 2-state solution. Let's have peace with our Israeli partners. And we agree about the 1967 borders. They didn't agree. They didn't want. They kept working on confiscating more land and using the negotiation as a time to win more land. And recently, the coalition in Israel is set up by the goal to annex these. What is left? Gaza's here, and Hebron is here, exactly, and they want it all yellow. David Wilder, the spokesperson, he's American too. I told you, you are exporting tax money and the bad people. You get rid of them from here, but you send them to us. David Wilder, the spokesperson of the Israeli settlers in Hebron, said, blessed God told me to make war for this land, and this is what I am doing. Another settler says in Hebron, I have a dream not as Martin Luther King dream. Their dream is different. To see Hebron only Jewish in 10 years. Only Jewish. You know what it means? We don't exist. Even we are not allowed to convert to Judaism. Palestinians, they believe in diversity. And our history is full of diversity. And we are proud of that. We don't distinguish between Jewish or Christians normally. I'm talking about the general opinion in the Palestinian in Palestine and outside Palestine. So this is Hebron. And as Nancy said, the suicide bomber phenomena started after a terrorist attack on the Palestinian. It's a justification. I'm completely against that. 1994, Baruch Goldstein, who's an American, too, unfortunately, went into the mosque. The mosque is here. Killed 29 Palestinians. The consequences of that massacre was to confiscate all the external yards. I was born here. I was playing all the time, swimming here. I'm not allowed even to enter there now. It's completely confiscated. They closed all this area. 1,800 shops closed. More than 1,000 apartments became empty. 43% of the housing units in that area. More than 100 movement barriers. That is after the Ibrahimi Mosque massacre. We were, as Palestinians, we were killed. Come on. That was the result of the 1994 massacre. Then, during the second intifada, 2000, wow, we need protection. From 2001 till 2003, 377 days of curfew. You know what it means, a curfew? You are not allowed to get out to your balcony, to your yards. You stay home as a prisoner. That made many families leave the restricted part of Hebron, where around 40,000 Palestinians living. 2015, we started uprising against what we saw in Nablus. A family was burned alive. And unfortunately, the Israeli police, army, well-paid, high-equipped, the highest technology in their, police didn't manage to catch who did it. In spite that Israeli settlers, they don't leave their settlements in all over West Bank without informing the Israeli soldiers. They didn't make them accountable. Al-Aqsa Mosque was attacked many times, and they start talking about occupying it, dividing it. So the Palestinians said, let's go for uprising. And you saw the videos. They imposed curfews. They imposed military zones. Military zone mean that you are not allowed to have visitors in your house. All of you are not welcome in my house, not because of me, because of the occupation. But you are welcome in Baruch Marzel's house, who's 5 meters far from my house. Journalists, human rights defenders, ambulances are not allowed. The area is completely closed. Not only that, they started something called numbering system. I am a number for them. What is your number when I go to the checkpoint? 220. Okay, you can get in. I refused as Issa to be a number. Let's go on with the presentation faster because I have 2 minutes. It's almost 20 minutes, but I will do it with 20 minutes. Okay, go on. More. That is before the displacement. Hebron, now it's empty like that. Gaza, the Arabs, graffiti in Hebron. Go on. This is the apartheid road in Hebron. As Americans, you walk here, and settlers, you walk in this part. As a Palestinian, I walk in this part. This green road, it's not for security. It's for separation, segregation, and apartheid. That's what we are talking apartheid. They don't see us. It's in 2016. We are not talking about 1950 or 55. Palestine, okay. Palestine never existed and never will. That is the politicians. It's political leaders that are saying this. More, not only Muslims are under attack. T-shirt, kill all the Christians now. This T-shirt, Israeli settler. Arresting kids, the cage house, gone. Burning Palestinian homes in Hebron. Harassing the Palestinian students in their way to school. The closed military zone. You see, this now a closed military zone. It's a siege. The culture of a siege, not only in Gaza, it's all over. They have the mind of a siege, and Nancy forgot to tell you who decides to give permit is a 19 years old soldier, sometimes 18. So chocolate is not allowed in Gaza. So if you visit someone in Gaza, take chocolate with you. Take cigarettes with you. What is the dual use of chocolate and cigarettes? The same in Hebron. Electrician is not allowed. A plumber is not allowed. Ambulance is dual use. Save lives. Save the lives of the terrorist. That is the dual use of an ambulance. No Palestinian vehicles, no Palestinian shops, completely without any basic rights. We don't talk about water. Once every 3 weeks you get water in this part of Hebron. And no even water, tanks can come to bring you water when you don't have water on the pipes. So you are stuck with the water. You need to save water and save it and save it and save it and see the settlers spraying it on the front of you because they know that you are suffering from the shortage of water. But as Palestinians, we are not only victims. And I am today not to make you feel sad, disappointed, or make you feel that, oh, Palestinians, I feel very sorry about them. Yes, it's important to feel sorry. But this feeling should be an encouragement to do, act, work, be creative to make a change. Nowadays and tomorrow, which is in few hours, we will have the launch of a big campaign. It was started last week to a peaceful campaign. We call it Open the Zone. The campaign is online, social media, and this is one of the tactics and the methodologies you should use and help us and share, inform your friends, your family, your partners, everywhere about these kind of things. We are creating public opinion. And the press conference is tomorrow. Our governor, we managed to bring him. Our mayor, we managed to bring him to speak out against the occupation. The occupation is forcing them not to speak. They are making the PA as a subcontractor of the occupation. They want them to work for them, not for the Palestinians. And who is helping them is the American government, unfortunately. So we have Open the Zone campaign. We have an annual campaign every year. Instead of feeling sad about what happened on the 25th of February 1994, Baruch Goldstein massacre, we celebrate the anniversary by non-violence activities all over the world in solidarity with Hebron. So I hope next year we see something big here in the US. This year we organized more than 155 different activities. So you are asked to do something about Baruch Goldstein, who's American, You do something about that too. Show us your solidarity and against what an American citizen did without any kind of accountability. Open Shahada Street campaign. Our non-violence protests. Our best lawyer was arrested, beaten by the Israeli soldiers in one of our protests. Our children are participating in the Open Shahada Street campaign. settlers, they attack the olive harvest, and you are all welcome to buy our olive oil, and you have it everywhere. Palestinian olive oil is so delicious, healthy. Buy it here. I don't know any brand, but all of you should buy it. I will not say a brand, but I think many companies are selling a Palestinian olive oil. What we do too, we organize ourselves as Palestinian youth to go to the Palestinian houses to give them a volunteering day, because maintenance is not allowed. We do the maintenance for the houses, painting, electricians, plumbers, yarding, gardening, making walls, putting fences. It's a big challenge. And the end of our, the campaign is going on, and last project we founded a kindergarten. This is a very important project we do. We give the Palestinian kids, women, families a tool, a camera, video camera. We teach them, train them to film, edit what they film, and use the social media. So each house almost is a media center. They film from their windows, they cut it, they put it online, they send it to us, it goes everywhere. We are doing very well with it. It as kind of awareness and protection tool, and a reaction tool with nonviolence to the oppression and intimidation of the Israeli occupation in Hebron. Women activities. This is the kindergarten. This is where we were working. Kids activities outside. And this is a good film. Was made by one of the kids who are living in a very bad situation. It's 1 minute. Okay. That is almost the last one. It's called The Cage. A Palestinian who is living in Tel Rumeida compared his life as a dove in a cage. It was his idea, not my idea. But we helped him in editing and a little bit of filming. It's in the same house. The house is fenced from all directions. He's going from the backyard to the front door. Fenced too. This is very important. When Obama visited Palestine and Israel in 2013, he refused to come to Hebron. Why we wanted him to come to Hebron? To see the real life under the occupation, the apartheid. But we demonstrated with Obama's mask and Martin Luther King mask and with a song from the civil rights movement. I was arrested when I was with Obama face. Here I am. And when I reached the police station, I saw the TV, the Israeli TV, dividing the screen. One Obama arrested, who's me, and other Obama's going down from the plane. I told the police it's me. But it was the worst experience for me to be arrested with Palestinian kids. It's really, I can't describe my feeling when I saw Palestinian kids being arrested, detained from 7:30 a.m. I reached them around 12:30, 12:45. I found them without food, without restrooms. Protests, what you can do. This is something very important. This is why I am here. Visit Hebron and Palestine, Gaza, understand more. Support us as human rights defenders on the ground by making us more expensive to them. We are not an equal human being, and they don't see us as human rights defenders. When you see us as human rights defenders in Palestine, the Palestinians who are fighting the occupation, you make us not an easy target for them to be arrested or to be beaten or to be killed. In the last 6 months, I was afraid about my life. It was not easy to continue fighting the occupation. Show solidarity. Be proud of yourself. You should be proud of yourself. Spread the information to your friends, to the social media. Write to your political representatives, to the media editors, to Fox News. Palestinians are not terrorists. Write, to the editors and target them, call them, go to visit them. It's very important to do that. BDS, it's not enough. It's good work, it's the right to BDS, but it's not enough. It's part from many other activities. So BDS is important, but we need more work. Be creative in what you do. It's very important to be creative in what you do. I will end the presentation showing you how the Palestinians go to the school by a short clip. Sorry, Amal, for going over my time. Showing how the Palestinian students, they fight to go to their schools.
احنا والله فلسطيني احنا اصحاب القضية احنا والله فلسطيني احنا شعب الحرية احنا والله فلسطيني احنا اصحاب القضية احنا والله فلسطيني احنا شعب الحرية ولو سألوك انت منين اصلك وفصلك من وين لو سألوك انت منين اصلك وفصلك من وين لا تقولوا ريحاوي لا تقولوا خليلي لا تقولوا نابلسي لا تقولوا غزاوي لا قولوا فلسطيني احنا والله فلسطيني احنا اصحاب القضية احنا والله فلسطيني احنا شعب الحرية لو بتلف العالم كله شعبك جبار ما في زيه لو بتلف العالم كله شعبك جبار
It's not a protest, it's the way to the school.
في وجه النار رافض الذل والعار صامت في وجه النار رافض الذل والعار لو سألوك انت منين اصلك وفصلك من وين لو سألوك انت منين اصلك وفصلك من وين قولوا فلسطيني احنا والله فلسطيني اصحاب القضية
That is the song says that we have the right and we seek freedom as united Palestinians. I tell you that when you reach politicians saying that it's apartheid and it's double standards and it's signs of 1930s in Germany, it means a lot. And you are here, have a duty to follow all the organizations and the groups who are working here in Boston and the USA to be all united and go over all the concerns, because the occupation needs us to be united to end it. So all together, I hope if we have any kind of misunderstanding or concerns to go over it and continue the continuous support to the Palestinians who are fighting the occupation and concentrate on the Palestinian grassroots movements, because NGOs their presence is very important. But now we need to go further by supporting the grassroots movements, which is growing against the occupation in Palestine, to make them be more effective against the occupation. And you have a role here. I promise you back home, I'm going tomorrow to Palestine, in Hebron, and all over the places I'm allowed. My dream is to visit Gaza. I've never been in my life. I was all over the world almost, except Gaza. So I promise you that I go back home to continue the nonviolence, human rights work, leading my community to make the occupation more expensive. But without you, me personally, I can't continue. Many Palestinian youth, they can't continue. And the occupation is stronger when you are here not doing enough work to put high pressure on the occupation supporters back home. So be proud of yourself that you are here tonight, that you will go home to do more work for Palestine and for yourself to stop the tax money which is occupying me till now. You have a responsibility to stop that and to end that and to support our freedom and justice and equality. And thank you very much for coming. Thank you.